Is this one? Okay. So what I'm hoping to do is that give you some of the biological basis for prostate carcinogenesis, and then pinpoint some of the molecular determinants that could potentially be biomarkers for prostate cancer detection, and also the targets for prevention trials. Then I'm hoping that by end of my talk, you will be able to appreciate the research that's being happening or going on in biological field to be very optimistic that future prevention research will lie into more target-oriented approach rather than doing like observational studies. So, and also I selected some of the potential biomarkers for many reasons. One of the reasons being is that after all we are in an aging conference. So I'm going to focus on those biomarkers that are known to be influenced by aging and also are found in cancer, and especially in prostate cancer. So you can see how they might be influencing each other. I need to learn how to use this computer then.
Go up to slideshow.
Yeah, that's okay.
And the first one, that's it. Say no.
Good. So, what is aging? And I, as Ian pointed out to you that 22 years ago, I did my doctoral thesis in aging, biochemical changes in rats in terms of protein, muscle proteins, actin, myosin, creatine phosphokinase. So it's kind of revisiting the whole thing in terms of cancer. And when I started preparing this talk, I felt that this is a very interesting area because you have been hearing about more and more connection between aging and cancer, but still we don't have so-called age-specific molecular determinants for cancer detection. We don't. So what is aging? Aging is a kind of gradual decline. Have you pointed here? No? Do you have a pointer?
It should be on the
Well, if not, then I'll just, here, I'm sorry, okay. So it's a gradual decline in performance and reserve capacity of organ systems. Also, it's associated with a decrease in the number and function of cells. And you all know that older cells do not maintain and repair tissue as well as young ones. And this is a cartoon showing that we grow older. The vitality, which is also shown as reduced reserve capacity, decreases. The cost of aging. This is something before this meeting, I try to find out what does it mean to be in a society of older people. So in year 2000, $600 billion for healthcare cost. Year 2000, the estimated 40 million Americans were 65 or older. And year 2020, this is estimated number 75 million. That means 1 in 4 Americans will be 65 years or older. And year 2020, 7 million Americans will be 85 or older. So, aging and prostate cancer, is it guilt by association? That's something you'll be the jury after the end of the talk. But you heard about it that prostate cancer is an aging disease, or better terms is that sign of being matured. So you hear all about these things, but what's the biological basis? How can you see that really aging are really influencing prostate cancer? There are plenty of evidence, but there's no really proven evidence that you can relate aging with prostate cancer, because many of older people don't get prostate cancer. So prostate cancer by age, and this is data I got it from cancer report that's published by American Cancer Society. But you can see that the number of cases, diagnosed cases, increases with age, and many of our previous speakers have also shown that to you. This is very interesting. How does the prostate cancer in terms of grade and age are influenced by age? And you can see if you focus on black one, that's the unknown. There are a number of unknown cases that increase with age. Also, in terms of if you focus on this blue one, the poorly differentiated cases also increases with age. Then I wanted to give you a snapshot. What are the various changes? Many of you know about this, that occurs as we grow older in terms of prostate. Benign prostate hyperplasia increases. High-grade PIN, and also this has a very much in racial disparity, the African American has, as is shown here, is more commonly seen in African American in increase in high-grade hyperplasia than white Americans. Prostate volume increases, and I've given within prostate volume like zonal prostate measurements, transistal zone, TV also increases, peripheral zone also increases, and also the total prostate volume, as I said, also increases. And you heard from previous speakers that while Saka reported that based on autopsy data, that men over 50 had, 55 I guess, had some kind of prostate cancer. So aging in cancer, two ends of the spectrum. Aging, and you heard this morning, that is the greatest risk factor for development of cancer, not just prostate cancer, but many other cancers. More than 60% of all cancers and 69% of all cancer-related deaths are in 65 and older segment of the US population. 40% of Americans will get cancer, 25% will die from cancer. And more than 1 million people in the United States are diagnosed with cancer each year, out of which 550,000 die each year. Aging and cancer, both are influenced by our genes, what we carry. For example, gene mutation in Werner syndromes or premature aging is caused by a single gene mutation on chromosome 8. Free radicals and DNA damage, I will show you some slides, are also affected by age, and they're also found in carcinogenesis. Telomerase, our biological clock, are found in aging and cancer. I'll also show you some example gene silencing, hypermethylation in cancer and aging. Also in cellular senescence in cancer, aging and cancer, two different phenotypes. And I'll also show you some slides that senescent cells are arrested in G1 phase. Mutation involving the G1 phase, therefore, lead to mortality or immortal cells, which is cancer. So what are the potential biomarkers of prostate cancer? And I selected those which I told you earlier that are also influenced by age, like biomarkers of oxidative damage, epigenomics, hypermethylation, telomerase, and I'll show you that how they're influenced by age, and then could also be biomarker for prostate cancer detection. And then the latest is protein profiling. Protein profiling measures proteins in body fluid that are also influenced by age. And then you heard from Ian talking about susceptibility markers, polymorphism, which I'm not going to discuss about. But also you heard from Ian about serum markers that could be potentially used for cancer detection. And these are the list of biomarkers which are under study, are being studied in various labs around the country, and some of which are also being studied in the program I run, Early Detection Research Network. And some of them, in fact, are being looked into by Ian Thompson lab. For example, susceptibility biomarker, especially for androgen receptor polymorphism, is being looked here locally by Dean. Okay, so what's the oxidative stress? So as we grow older, there's a oxidative damage by having more reactive oxygen species, ROS. And that free radicals also affect specific molecules In aging, one of the aging theories is that when we grow older, there's a lot of cross-linking in collagens. And the collagens are cross-linked by free radicals. So when the production of free radicals exceeds the body's natural antioxidant defense mechanism, the oxidative stress can occur, causing damage to key biomolecules, and that could be in the pathway to carcinogenesis. And you heard in talking about SELECT trial using antioxidant selenium. How the free radicals are produced in the body? They could be produced by UV light, ionizing radiation, cigarette smoke, air pollutants, toxins, and also many inflammatory conditions. And these free radicals could be in superoxide form, hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyl radicals, and singlet oxygen, and they're all shown here. Now, how they could be used as a biomarkers. And I'll show you some data that these free radicals bind DNA and they make DNA adducts. And then thereby DNA adducts predisposes to further carcinogenic events. So they can bind to membrane, they can bind to DNA, I'll show you a slide, they can bind to protein even, and I gave an example on collagens, and also bind to proteasome, and thereby affecting the processing of protein. Oxygen radicals are known to be involved in various clinical conditions. In fact, one of the previous speakers also mentioned these things. But I want to draw your attention to this in aging and also in cancer. They play a major role in terms of initiating cancer and aging. Now, as I said, that how do they influence cancer? So by now you know that as we grow older, we have more free radicals. When the free radical exceeds our antioxidant ability, they may bind to DNA and form adducts. I've given you an example here from breast cancer. If you see the malignant breast cancer, the DNA adduct is almost about 9-fold higher in breast cancer controlled to normal, and thereby predisposes to further damage and thereby becoming more malignant. So as we age, the oxidative stress increases while antioxidant defense decreases. And I've given you some of the examples of antioxidant mechanism here, defenses, and also the stresses, which I've already discussed to you about this. So the point I want to draw attention that this is one of the area that we can focus on to look for more biomarkers indicative of oxidative damage, because they are both influenced by aging process and also and also involved in carcinogenesis. And SELECT trial is a good example where they are using selenium as an antioxidant for prostate cancer. Another example of oxidative damage and cancer. For example, it's a chronic pancreatitis. The amount of ROS, reactive oxygen species, is much higher than normal pancreas. And there are epidemiological data that chronic pancreatitis carries 15 to 20-fold increased risk of pancreatic cancer. And in fact, after 10 years of ulcerative colitis, there's another cancer, there's a 1 to 2% per year risk of colorectal cancer. And those are all because of reactive oxygen. Process of DNA damage, for example, are central to carcinogenesis for at least ulcerative colitis and also chronic pancreatitis. So by showing these slides, I wanted to impress upon you that there's a very intimate connection between oxidative damage with aging and also with cancer. And thereby, if you can develop sensitive tools or molecular detection tools to measure the extent of oxidative damage will serve or will help us identify the risk to prostate cancer. Other idea that is also, there is another change that is also influenced by age and also found in cancer is called gene silencing. If you see, the gene has a very regulatory region called promoter. When the promoter is hypermethylated, they silence the normal function of gene, and that is what is called gene silencing. So the silencing of gene promoter has been reported in variety of tumors, and especially in terms of prostate cancer, they have been reported. And I'll tell you some data. GSTP1 gene, which produces glutathione S transferase, and glutathione S transferase takes away the harmful free radicals. There's a high correlation between hypermethylation and early onset of cancer, and I'll give you some examples. Methylation and aging, how they're related. Hypermethylation of chromosome 17p has been observed histologically normal in benign hyperplastic tissues from prostate glands, which both did and did not contain cancer. So that means it's not the sole cause for prostatic cancer. It can be found in even normal cancer as well, normal prostate as well. But it does put you at a higher risk. Methylation associated inactivation of ER gene in aging and colorectal cancer, colorectal mucosa, could be one of the earliest events that predispose to sporadic colorectal tumorigenesis. So there are many examples that are correlating between hypermethylation, aging, and prostate cancer. Why this is important in terms of prevention? Because many of these methylations are also preventable. We have agents that can demethylate those genes and thereby prevent cancer. Further on methylation and aging, age-related methylation involves at least 50% of the genes which are hypermethylated in colon cancer. Such age-related methylation may partly account for the fact that most cancers occur as function of old age. So that's a biological basis. The cause of age-related methylation is still unknown. We don't know what causes hypermethylation of promoter regions in gene. But it does provide you the basis or evidence pointing to interplay between local predisposing factors in DNA methylation, levels of gene expression, and also environmental exposure, thereby giving you a clue to nature-nurture interaction in carcinogenesis. The concept that age-related methylation is a predisposing factor for neoplasia implies that it may serve as a diagnostic marker in cancer and as well as a novel target for chemoprevention. And as I point out to you, why? Because methylation or hypermethylation are reversible. They can be reversed by even diets and also some other agents. I'll skip this slide. So how their aging is related to cancer? Okay, now I think my slide, well, I'm missing one slide. This is not my revised slide. Okay, but let me tell you what it is. So David Sidransky, who is part of the Early Detection Research Network, he did a study using various stages of prostate cancer and measured the hypermethylation of GSTP1, both in urine sediments and also biopsy specimen. And he found that 70%, very high number, of all prostate cancers gene GSTP1 were hypermethylated. He also found in corresponding patient, if you take the urine sediment, purified DNA, and measure hypermethylation, he also found hypermethylation of that gene, which is GSTP1. But the concordance between the urine sediment and the biopsy specimens were not high. Only 1/3 of urine sediment from the cancer patient showed hypermethylation. And he attributed this disconcordance because of lack of sensitivity for measuring hypermethylation in urine sediment. But in urine sediment, no cases were reported in terms of hypermethylation where there was no cancer. So that was good. Most of the cases he reported hypermethylation in urine sediment were truly carcinoma. Now, so I talked to you about oxidative damage. I talked to you about hypermethylation. Now I'm changing it to cellular aging. And this is a story about telomerase. Now cancer cells are immortal and normal cells are mortal. Lack of cell division in senescent cells decreases the frequency and accumulation of genetic mutation. And the mechanism regulating aging may protect against the development of cancer. That's something that we are trying to explore. Now, telomerase, as I pointed out, that human is a kind of human clock, and telomerase are progressively lost with each cell division. It provides expandable DNA buffers that protects us from erosion. Also, it enables cells to distinguish chromosomes ends from breaking DNA. Many of you know about telomerase, but I just want to give you what is telomerase. A cellular reverse transcriptase composed of both RNA and protein that works by synthesizing new telomeres to compensate for normal telomeric loss. Usually it's silent or expressed at low levels in most normal human tissues, but it's highly expressed in cancer cells. Now telomerase, each component of telomerase has been cloned. We have the major component of the telomerase called H-TERT, that the human telomerase reverse transcriptase is the major catalytic unit. Then you have HTR, human telomerase RNA, that serves as a template for H-TERT. TEP1 is a telomerase associated protein 1, and function still we don't know. Then we have some molecular chaperone, P23 and heat shock protein 90, that are part of this ribonucleoprotein complex. And this is a cartoon was given to me by Geri-ed at UT Southwestern. Now the important point is this, that if we can develop analog for H-TERT that can prevent telomeric activity, increased telomeric activity, perhaps it can also help us prevent cancer. Now, there are strong evidence that support telomerase and cellular aging, and I'll show you that telomerase shortened with increased age in most organ systems. Telomeres are shorter in patients with early aging syndrome, like I just talked to you a few minutes ago about progeria, when compared to age-matched normal controls. Telomeres progressively shorten in normal human cells with each division in cell culture. And there's a cartoon here. So as we grow older, the telomeric length decreases and cells eventually dies. But in case of cancer or no senescence, the increased telomerase activity maintains the telomeric length, and thereby cells are immortal. Telomeric length decreases with age, and the point you can see in blood, and I've given you some data here, that really the telomeric length decreases with increasing age. But, so does it mean that if we can prevent telomerase, we can prevent cancer? That is not that simple. There are many animal models that has been found to lack telomerase activity, but still they have cancer. So the point here is that telomerase may be one of the factors that might be leading to carcinogenesis. This is not the only factor leading to carcinogenic process. But majority of the tumors have high including prostate cancer, have high expression of telomerase activity. And in fact, since this is not my revised slide, I wanted to give you an example, is that human TERT expression correlates with stage and not with the grade in prostate cancer. Also, by using what you call ROC analysis, the telomerase really give you a good discriminating power, almost about area within the AUC is 0.88 with the confidence interval of 0.96 to 1. So it does give you a good discriminating power for prostate cancer. Even for bladder cancer, when we miss more than 50% of bladder cancer using cytological examination, if you combine telomerase with cytological examination, it increases the detection power almost to about 76% than just if you use cytologic examination, which is about 50%. You miss almost 50% cases. So telomerase activity does help you to increase the performance of existing diagnostic tools or diagnostic tests. Having said all these biomarkers, now there's a new focus that not just 1 or 2 biomarkers is enough to predict prostate cancer with great accuracy. Therefore, they are looking into panel or protein patterns in biological fluid, in this case serum. And why? Because most diagnostic markers in practice today are proteins. Most drug targets are proteins, and proteins are the ultimate regulator of cell function because they are truly the phenotypic reflection of changes in phenotypic behaviors of cancerous cells. So CELD, and you must have heard about protein profiling, is becoming very popular because it's easy to use, and also you don't have to process, or you don't have to do biopsy. You can simply use unprocessed serum and analyze the protein patterns. Why do we need this? After all these biomarkers I alluded to are described to you, because Ian Thompson, he pointed out that the mortality remains still very high. So we need to find out better tools, better than PSA and all its molecular forms that have been discussed in this meeting. But we need a better panel of biomarkers to reduce false positivity. So I don't want to go to the number because you are very knowledgeable about it, but we are at the point that we should be looking more and better, better and sensitive biomarkers for prostate cancer detection. And the proteomics is providing that opportunity if they are truly validated in clinical settings. If you haven't seen a proteomic chip, it's a kind of little metallic chip, has wells built in, and these little wells are coated with various kind of surfaces. But for our prostate cancer study here, they are metal binding or IMAC chip. So they selectively binds proteins that are found in sera from patient. So what actually happens that you have unprocessed serum and they are layered into these wells. And they are washed to remove unbound proteins. And they are treated with reagents that enables these bound protein to be excited by laser. And that is that's shown here. So what happens that when laser is shone on those wells, these proteins ionize, and then they're allowed to travel through this electrical poles or electrical field. Those proteins which have higher molecular weight, they travel slowly compared to those which has low molecular weights. And these are reflected as time of flights. So longer the time of flight, larger the molecular weights. By doing this analysis, you see patterns, and I think Ian showed in one of the slides. Let me show you the pattern. So you see this pattern. So, and on the x coordinates, you see the molecular weights. So these proteins here are coming out of those ionized proteins. And as Ian pointed out to you that if you see the red bar and also the blue bar, in red you see there are some peaks, and thereby there are some proteins which are found in normal, but they are not found in cancer cells. In the blue circle panel, you see some proteins that are found in cancer but not in normal. So the challenge is that how should we use these patterns to develop a discriminating criteria by which you can say that if these proteins or these panels are found, then it's indicative of prostate cancer. If they're not found, then they are indicative of normal. And the idea here is to study the tumor behavior, to show that which are likely to progress to more invasive, which are not likely to progress to invasive cancer. Here's the bioinformatic challenge. You'll be hearing, I'm sure, in many other meetings to come, to analyze these protein patterns. And you'll be hearing the fancy term artificial intelligence tools, where they do a basically pattern matching. This is one of the approaches that EDRN is developing. It's called Wavelet Transform. So make it very simplistic. This is not a newer concept. In computer science, this has been used for many, many years. So the idea is to use this mechanism or transformation to reduce the dimension of the data, because you are getting many dimensions of the data which are unmanageable in terms of analysis. So the wavelet transformation is to simplify the data you're getting out of protein patterns. And this is a complicated formulas that you don't need to know, but that what it does is, we want to show you that on the upper panel, you see the raw data, the way the peak looks. And you see also many noise in the peak. But if you do the transformation, the peaks are smoothened and also they are simplified. So they are more intelligible or more readable to the eyes. Now, so they develop, based on this wavelet theory, they develop sophisticated programs by which they can read the patterns from normal, BPH, or various stages of prostatic carcinoma. And they store some determinants or coefficients to create this lower panel. And they use that coefficients to develop some develop discriminating criteria. And by then, based on the outcome, they develop the sensitivity and specificity for each test. So the first thing they do, that they train their program with known outcome, which is training set. And in that training set, they have 167 prostate carcinoma, 81 normals. And they found that by using these patterns, they were able to come up with 95% sensitivity and 100% specificity. What the 100% specificity means that the pattern analysis gave almost 100%, in 100% cases, that those who did not have cancer did not have cancer. So you did not label somebody wrong with cancer. They checked this computer program with the data that were blinded to the program, and they came up with 94% of sensitivity and 98.8% of specificity. This is very promising in the sense that at least it really reduces the false positive as you find in case of PSA. This is being now looked further by our EDR investigators, and we are hoping to start a big study in collaboration with SWOG, and the discussion is going to be held sometime next month here in San Antonio in conjunction with SWOG meeting. So the idea is to increase the sample size and see whether those specificity and sensitivity still holds. The problem we found is using this criteria is that there are still some gray areas, especially in terms of BPH and also carcinoma, where we misclassify BPH either as cancer or we misclassified cancer as BPH, which is the misclassification rate was almost about 9%. That need to be improved if this test is to be truly useful for prostate cancer detection. So I wanted to conclude by saying that there are many commonalities between aging and prostate cancer, whether this is sign of being matured or is really truly age dependent, that we still cannot say for sure, but there are biological age dependent changes that might influence carcinogenesis. Aging has profound impact on incidence of cancer. We all know about this, and most of the cancers are either in men or women 50 or older. We are hoping that newer and cutting-edge technology for measuring physiological changes such as protein profiles may help us to better correlate between aging and cancer and perhaps come up with some specific biomarkers that could be more amenable in growing aging population. With this, I'll be happy to take questions. Yeah.
You said that you were talking about telomeres and how telomeres telomerase affects prostate cancer. What is the biological significance of the shortening of telomeres?
When the telomere shortens, the cell dies. That's the normal process. In aging, this is what happens. The telomere length shortens and the cells die. In cancer, they maintain the length, and therefore the cells are immortal. So there's uncontrolled growth.
And how do people measure the telomere length and telomerase activity?
Telomerase activity, there's a trap assay, and in fact, I didn't tell you much details because I didn't know that how sophisticated this audience. We are developing some high throughput assay at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, because the assay we have now, trap assay for telomerase, is slow, it's cumbersome, and we are hoping that if telomerase is going to be used in diagnostic settings, we should be looking to high throughput assay. For telomeric length, there are many technologies that are being used, and the pioneer is right in your alley, Jerry Shea, here at UT Southwestern.